Is okay, and we are live on YouTube. What a great privilege, my fearless friends, to have with us Glenn Marsden. By the way, Glenn, before we start, am I pronouncing your name right? Is it Glenn Marsden?
Very good, very good.
Okay, yes. Good. I want to make sure I say it right. Wonderful. And Glenn is going to teach us about what it means to be yourself. It sounds so simplistic, but how many times do we fall in the trap of social media and being people pleasers, which I used to be so good at, Glenn. I used to be the best with pleasing people. So it's wonderful to see things from a whole new perspective. And yes, encouraging everyone to get a pen. It broke off a bit. Can you please repeat what you just said?
I was just saying, attesting to what you said there, we can all resonate. I think we've all been people pleasers at one time or another.
Yeah, I used to be such a good sport with this. I could get some medals. Yeah, it was fun. And encouraging everyone to make sure that you get your pen and paper ready, because this is going to be an epic talk about the wonderful campaign that Glenn is running, Imperfectly Perfect campaign. Only the name itself, Glenn, is so powerful. So it's going to be very educational for all of us. And going into IG Live, okay, making sure that people can see you on the screen. And we are live today. Hello to everyone. Starting in just a few seconds with the wonderful Glenn Marsden, which I am so privileged to host today on what it means to be transforming yourself so that you can keep your power to yourself, so that you can acknowledge and accept all your imperfections and simply live your best life. And we have Hemal. Hello, Hemal. Thank you for joining us, and Rania. Okay, and Glenn, if that's okay with you, we can start the actual Spotify recording. Is there anything else that you would want to, I don't know, do or ask me before we start? Or are you okay to?
No, I'm ready to rock and roll.
Awesome. Okay. Trying to not get that excited because I'm so ecstatic right now. Oh my goodness. Okay, like a kid with having the best candy you can get out there, because I've seen your content for quite some time, and now getting the privilege to talk with you is, wow, outstanding. Thank you, universe. Okay.
We making me blush, and I don't really blush.
Okay, you are the kindest. Thank you. And if that's okay with you, I'm going to start the actual official recording in 3, 2, 1. Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode number 45. Such a privilege and an honor to have with us today the creator of the Imperfectly Perfect campaign. Glenn Marsden was badly affected by body dysmorphia and losing a friend to suicide. So he sought escapism in all the wrong places. But through self-discovery, learning to tap into that inner voice that we all have, not being afraid to ask for help, and a lot of hard work, he conquered overcoming his past struggles and the loss of a friend. By becoming aware and understanding the root cause of his own escapism and turning his attention to self-discovery, he defines the word transformation in every sense of the word. Today, he is known as the world's best imperfectly perfect coach, who is the founder of the world's fastest growing mental well-being organization, Imperfectly Perfect Campaign Global, and one of Australia's most influential and empowering motivational speakers. If this is not a glow up, I don't know what it is. Welcome, Glenn. What a privilege to have you with us today.
What a privilege it is. I mean, wow, when you have to hear back something like that, yeah, it's been a journey. It's blown up on the external really, really fast, but what I've had to work on myself on the internal side, it's been a long journey, and it's ongoing. I want people to know that from the outset. It's not something that when you learn to tap in, it's this sudden awakening of everything happens and everything's amazing. It's a process in itself.
Just reading your biography a few days ago got me feeling these shivers. And if I were John Travolta, I would say they're multiplying. I won't sing. I won't sing because I'm not good. I'm not good at that. But it got me to think that, wow, you had quite a journey, Glenn. How did it all begin so that you get to be this amazing mentor and visionary in the mental health industry?
Well, first of all, that was a really good play on words, so I really like that. I'm going to pull that one out of my back pocket one day. I suppose where it started for me was, if I take us back 6-7 years ago, I developed body dysmorphia being in the health and fitness industry. It got to such a bad place where I didn't really know how to get myself out of it. Very much dominated by masculinity around that kind of environment. So I didn't speak about it. I didn't tell anybody about it. What started looking in the mirror for about 2 to 3 minutes ended up, when it got to its worst, 2 to 3 hours. Now, anybody that doesn't understand or doesn't know that much predominantly about body dysmorphia, it's looking at yourself and seeing perceived flaws. So it very much is in your head what you're telling yourself. Now, for me, it got to such a space where, as I said, I was looking at myself for that long, whereas it took over the point of my relationship. We just had our first child. And from an external point of view, looking in, and I would never blame anybody because people who don't understand it, I was teaching classes as in group fitness as well as being a personal trainer. So I was up on stage in front of a couple of hundred people, loving it, executing everything well. So everyone would have thought I was doing fine. However, I was getting home and I was in the mirror for a few hours, just pulling myself apart, to the point where even my wife at the time, like she was like, "Come on, you love yourself a little bit." And I was like, if you have gone through body dysmorphia, it's not loving yourself at all. It's the opposite.
Wow, Glenn. I can relate to this. People sometimes think that we get to be narcissists, but on the inside, it is the complete opposite. And
it's debilitating. It can be debilitating because your thought process is just telling you something that you actively think is real, and you want someone to reinforce that. So you will constantly ask somebody, and mine was my wife being my closest, and I'd be like, what I wanted was this big aesthetic chest and these arms, because I was living in Bondi, and that's what a lot of my friends looked like. Little to say, many of them would have been taking something in their body, but telling me they weren't. So again, I'm not naive, but on the external, you wouldn't think close friends would be telling you that they're natural. So it played with my head. So I would be picking on myself, but also saying to my wife, can you not see what I see? Can you not see what I see? To the point it would get annoying for anybody, to the point where they would go, okay, I see what you mean. And then you go, I told you, I just knew it. So it reinforced the idea in your head, but they couldn't see anything wrong. And they were like, I only ended up saying it because you were annoying me. You keep saying it. So it's a cycle. It's a cycle that you really do need help with.
It's very painful, Glenn. I can relate. I used to need exterior validation for every single move that I would do. If only I would think of going outside my house 15 years ago without makeup, I would have a panic attack.
Wow.
It was this awful. And as I come to understand that, it took me years of, okay, I'm not just my body, I'm so much more than that. I felt so relieved to be looking in the mirror and going outside without looking as I was going on the red carpet or anything. And I wanted to ask you, Glenn, what was that shift? What happened that got you to begin to turn things around? And I say begin because I know it's a process that took you a while.
Yeah, and I will say, I pretty much hit rock bottom. There was a point when I didn't know what to do. I didn't want to do anything and take it too far. However, it got to a point where my wife noticed it, and as the time went by, she noticed it was taking me away from my child and her. And she sat me down one day to the point where I'd never cried as a guy. And she said, well, we either get you help or we're going to have to split up. We can't keep living like this. And I think for the point as a guy thinking that he's going to lose his family, that was my rock bottom. So we actually went to see somebody. And I suppose that was the turnaround. But bearing in mind, at the time for me, we happened to be living in Thailand. So think about Thailand as a place where it isn't really based on aesthetics, it's based on education. Like there's a lot of Thai people who are into fitness, but predominantly it's about education, not about looks as everything. Whereas Sydney, Australia, you're around it, the beach, and it very much is an outdoor lifestyle. Top off, you're on the beach every single day. So being there, when I first opened up to a general practitioner, and I would say to anybody, if you're dealing with symptoms or going through anything with body dysmorphia, see if you can get a referral to a psychologist. And the reason being is a general practitioner is just that, a general practitioner. When I sat down and I was speaking to this guy, and I'd take my top off and I was like, can you not see this? He was like, I don't see anything. And I Googled my symptoms, which I always say I self-diagnosed myself with body dysmorphia, because when I went to see that doctor and I said to him, I think I'm dealing with body dysmorphia, he actually said to me, what is that? And I was like, are you joking me? He was like, is it some form of OCD? And I was like, yeah, you can say that. It's a repetitive nature. You're repeating patterns. You're constantly looking at yourself. So for somebody to hit rock bottom and then see somebody who didn't really understand it, you can imagine what that did for my head. I was like, well, there's no one going to help me now, because if the doctor doesn't know what it's about. And you know what? It was the point where it was my wife and she was like, look, we'll go and see somebody else. So we actually went to see somebody else, and with a psychologist, they actually uncovered a lot. But again, there was a pattern there with the psychologist where they was trying to pinpoint it, like underlying turmoil, or was this something from my younger years? And the thing was, that actually, excuse my language, but that pissed me off, because I was the first one on the beach with my top off. Never bothered me. It was like when I turned 30 and I was a father, it suddenly hit me. So I don't know where it came from. There was no pinpoint for me to go, oh yes, something happened when I was younger. There wasn't. And it was only several years later when I actually started IPC right at the beginning. I was on a podcast with an actress called Heather Maltman, who brought me on her podcast. And she said, you were so relentless in your approach with this. Like, we know that you lost a friend to suicide, but there's a passion behind that as well. What happened to you? And I shared my story, and we went through days. And as I walked through the days, it pretty much coincided with the beginning or around the time of Instagram and comparing myself.
Wow.
So that was my pinpoint. But that was a turning point for me, because when I started speaking about it, it opened the door to me going, okay, I'm not the only one experiencing this. And what did eventuate from that was I started learning cognitive behavioral therapy. When we came back to live in Sydney, Australia, I was still working in the fitness industry because I love being around people. It's it's what I'm about. I was still teaching, but the symptoms and everything I knew I had, I could spot. So I suppose you can say it gave me a discernment to see someone in the gym who was going through very similar things. And I'd pick it up. I'd see some of these guys or girls who to me on an external would look absolutely amazing, but they wouldn't look at themselves in the mirror. Now with body dysmorphia, there's two types. Either you're obsessively looking in the mirror at perceived flaws, or you can't look at yourself. And I'd be noticing, and I'd just start a conversation, initiate it, and go, you're squatting, but you're not watching your squat. Like, just make sure that your back's in alignment. Like, and they just wouldn't make eye contact with themselves in the mirror. I was like, I noticed that you don't look in the mirror. Like, is there a reason why? They'd be like, oh, I just don't like looking at myself. And then I'd open up about mine and just talk about the body dysmorphia. And it was like, oh my God, I didn't know there was a name for it, but I think I have that as well.
Wow.
So it just really opened up these conversations. And that's the thing with IPC, when we talk about that, it's the oldest form of communication, storytelling. We resonate with people.
Wow. This is amazing, and I can relate to so many of the things that you are telling us. Many of my friends have had similar symptoms, and it's amazing to ask for help. And I love it that I just read in your introduction that you asked for help. On my side, I was not coachable for many years. I had some fear issues. I had some health issues because of fear, because I was postponing to make a decision for 8 full years. I took the decision mentally, but when it came to putting it in practice, anxiety in all its forms and overwhelm, that it got me to some health issues. And I have to say that I'm very grateful for your wife, that she was your main guide, taking you to several people to get you the help that you needed. And Glenn, what is the story behind you using such struggle? You have had this mental pain. How did you get to turn it around to put it in the Imperfectly Perfect campaign with so much success?
Well, further to that, like 3.5 years ago, it's coming up to nearly 4 years now. My big attribute, like I was saying, was social media. So I turned it off. I thought, out of sight, out of mind. However, because I had a passion for photography and I had a child, I used to take baby pictures and all this. So obviously my wife wanted pictures one day of Lincoln, my child, to send to family. So I turned social media back on. And bearing in mind, I'd not lived in the UK, where I'm originally from, for, it would have been back then, 16, 17 years or something like that. And I saw an old friend who I used to train with at the gym had passed away. Now, I looked into it, and pretty much you're like, okay, so there was no illness according to his social media. There was no build up to it. Like normally if someone's ill, there's a couple of things. And bearing in mind, I've not been in touch with him for these years because 17 years being in Sydney, you've made a life. But obviously when I saw it, I recognised him and who it was. And having trained together a lot back in the olden days. So I looked into it and then started reaching out to friends who I'd not spoken for a long time back in the UK and said, what happened? And they was like, I took his life. Now, I was looking back over social media, there was the corporate career, there was the cars, there was a holiday, and then there was a video. And it was a video that his wife or his partner, bear in mind, we lost contact, so I didn't know if he was married or not, but from the video, it was their life together. And then, you know, when people put music on it, and it's just very emotive language and emotive music, and then the next minute, there was a video interlude of him and his little boy. And it was like he was kissing and cuddling his little boy. He was smiling at the camera, and I was just like, "Oh my!" Yeah, even now, for her to have to see, oh, it still gets me. Whew.
It gets me, Glenn, and yeah. I'm only listening to you. Yeah.
To have to sit down and tell a child that their parents not coming home, like, oh, Yeah. So, with that being said, I had to work through that, and then moving further forward, it was a case of I was speaking to friends, I was telling them about it. They was telling me they lost people, and for me, I was like, okay, so I'm going to start reaching out to organisations. So I started reaching out to these organisations in Australia. Bearing in mind, a lot of people are advocates, so they all want to do something. So I then got thank you, but no thank you from a lot of people. And I was just, you know what can I do? What can I do that's not being done before? So I literally utilised photography. And for anybody looking at the minute, you can see these photos behind me. So I utilise social media for its intended purpose, and I started reaching out to people that we often look up to. Celebrities, corporate leaders, people in every industry that are at the top of the game that we often aspire to be or look up to, thinking that their life is perfect. And I just sent them messages, and I was like, look, I'm laying my heart on the line. This is it. This is what I'm doing. And I want to shoot you. I should say that another way. I want to take a photo of you, but I don't want to take a photo when you're in a studio. Like, I'm not the first person to take a picture of a celebrity. However, I don't want to do this. And again, I apologize for swearing, but I was seeing a lot of campaigns with pretty shit. Mental health is not pretty. It's messy. And I was like, we would not be having this conversation about mental health still and losing people if sometimes we faced it and we saw the reality of it. So you'll see the images behind me, some of the biggest names in Australia. And I just shot them. I took them out on the street and I said, look, I don't want you to think about it for long. I want you to come out of it, but I'm going to shoot and I want you to play a piece of music or read an extract from your diary that means something to you when you was in that dark place. And then as they did it, I was watching, and something, maybe because I've gone through adversity, but something hit me, and I'd be like, just look at the camera. Now, if anyone goes to those images and has a look, like Mel Gregg, she's one of the biggest names, it's just one single tear that's down.
Awesome sharing. Thank you for saying this.
You got me going.
It's so beautiful to hear you share with us such an important part of your life and how it all began. I appreciate this. I don't appreciate you ruining a bit of my makeup with this story. So it's okay. What a story.
Well, I'll say to your audience now, whatever's happened to me through this, it's always said something higher power, something's come through me, and I've been given this discernment. Everyone says it. Everyone who I meet, I always make cry. So that, you know, I've got a power. That's my special power.
That's wonderful. You should have told me this. Let's make up. It would have made things easier. No, I'm just kidding around. I love it that you used photography, a passion of yours, to catch those very moments that are not glamorous, are not the best sides, the best angles, which we all show on social media, as you said. And it's interesting that, you know, I love the Hollywood life. I love the beautiful edited pictures. I know that there are sometimes hours of people editing using face apps and lightings and all sorts of edits, which is okay if people want to do this. However, what I would love people to be very honest and transparent about is, okay, this is not reality. I would have this as a disclaimer, Glenn, because, you know, I mean, plastic surgery is okay. I don't have any issues with everyone is entitled to have their own opinions and you are in charge of your own body and decisions. But as an influencer, as maybe an artist, that you have millions, hundreds of millions of people looking up to you, tell them, be honest about what you did with your face, with your body, because young women, and I'm thinking of my young daughter, she's only 2 now, but I'm thinking of, okay, she sees these perfectly tailored faces and bodies that are most of the times helped with the help of plastic surgery, which once again, it's okay. But be honest about this. Tell people that you did a nose job, you did your eyebrow lift, which is okay. Maybe I'll get this done in a few tens of years, maybe not, but it's nice to be honest about this. And I saw a photo that really got me emotional. I felt something on your social media on Instagram, this woman crying, such pure raw emotion that you don't get to see anywhere else. And I was so grateful for this. It just reminded me, okay, we're humans. We're okay to have not the best days. We can break down, but then we can also lift ourselves up. And I wanted to ask you, Glenn, how do you see fear in this whole amazing journey of yours with so many changes? Has fear helped you become your best self? What do you think?
No, I think there was I wouldn't say as much as fear. I think there comes a time in your life where if you hit rock bottom and you realize that society is backwards, everything that we thought or we're told or what is perpetuated, exactly what you were saying there about had I have known that it wasn't real, maybe I wouldn't have dealt with what I went through. Had some of my friends been honest with me, it may have not messed my head up. But I now look back and think, well, that was part of my journey because look where I am today and look at how many people I'm helping. So maybe I was supposed to experience that adversity. So I don't want to live in the past. I want to utilize that and share my story to make sure that that little kid or that man or woman doesn't have to go through the same experiences I did. And I think that's the big thing. The draw card is, and I'll tell you a little story, is the fact that, and this is what I teach when I do mentor and I have clients. So it's a long, long time ago, there was a monastery in Thailand and they had all these beautiful golden Buddhas. Now, when the war was happening, they had to try and hide the gold because a lot of it was being taken. So one of the main golden Buddhas, they actually placed mud, silt, everything to cover it. Now, everything else got taken and demolished. Years and years went past, and as it went past, they were building a road that was straight through the monastery. So one night there was this storm, excuse me, and just a water. One night there was a storm, and this monk went out. He saw this little glimmer from this big mud pile. Didn't know what it was, but in the morning, when the storm was over, he went out with a couple of the other monks, and they started chipping away. They started chipping away all this mud and all this silt and everything. And what came out? The Buddha. Now, this is the IPC. This is me. This is you. We are that golden Buddha. And society and people place so much crap on us, dirt, shit, all this. We have to remove all that to find that golden Buddha within us. When you realize that, you start to tap inside rather than looking at everything on an outside. So in relation to your question, I don't think it was fear or anything motivating me to move forward. I think I just got to a place where I realized everything in society or my environment wasn't resonating with me, and I knew there was something else.
Wow. I love this metaphor of the golden Buddha. And it's true. It's so true, Glenn. You are our reminder that we are perfect just the way that we are. And now I want to ask you something that just came to my mind. Would you rebrand the word imperfect?
No. Keep it exactly the way it's supposed to be. There's people who's gone, is it supposed to be perfectly imperfect? Imperfectly perfect? Look at it how you want to. Our imperfections are what make us perfect. And when you can realize that, you start looking at external validation, all this crap that is placed upon us like the golden Buddha, and the right people will step forward. The right people don't care what you look like. The right people care what's in here, what's in your heart. And I see all this thing these days, and it's people talk about if we move into the entrepreneurial journey, like when you're on YouTube or LinkedIn or everything like that, people will look at titles, they'll look at professions, and they'll associate with people in those professions or titles. However, you might have walked in on a part of that person's journey where they hit rock bottom and they just needed a job to get through that time. That person could be somebody who was just going through a rough time. However, they could be a leading CEO of a multi-million-dollar company the year later that was just going through a rough patch. But because you look past them, because you looked at a title or a profession, you never know if you just lost an opportunity that could change your life. What does that show about you? You're looking at a profession or a title rather than a person here. People often talk about, and I find it so redundant, this, they talk about the 5 people that you hang around with, you're going to become. Now, I understand the concept. However, I find it redundant because I'm like, there's a lot of people, a lot of coaches out there that really lead with that and that really push this and go, you need to hang around with successful people, motivated people, wealthy people, because you're going to become that. Yeah, okay, I understand it, but are you actually explaining that if I was hanging around with people that was very wealthy, now, how did they get wealthy? Did they not care who they hurt? Did they tread on people to get where they are? Or do they have a good heart? Do they hold the same principles as me, the same values as me? Are they led by family or are they led by power and greed? Because if those things don't match for me, I don't care who you are.
Wow.
So it's just, it's society and the social media thing. Don't get me wrong, there's a lot of positives to it. We've come so far with it, but I think we've got lost along the way with the filters, with the influencers. There's a big difference, I always say, between an influencer and an influential person who's making an impact. And I just think in a day and age where everybody is trying to be something, there's still a mask. And what I want to show, if anything, through IPC, opportunities come from people. And if you're not being yourself and you're trying to copy somebody else or just imitate what someone else is doing, or if you're specifically leading by, I can make you this amount of money in this amount of time, well, is that your reality? Do you know what I mean? Or are you still trying to hide? Because if you're portraying that you're making this amount of money and you're not, when you do need help, what are you going to do? You're putting yourself into a further hole because you're never going to ask for help. Because if you came to me and was telling me that you was making six figures every single month, and then the next month you came to me and was like, I really need some help, I'm struggling, or like, how are you struggling when you're making 6 figures every single month? So people put themselves in a perpetual cycle in this hole that then they daren't ask for help because they've been portraying something they're not for so long.
Wow.
And the IPC is part in part the hard conversations towards mental health, but what else? The 5 substitutes of what does it? It's either finances, work, relationships, loneliness, exclusion. It's around those 5 things. And if you're looking at those 5 things, it's one area that we all struggle with, or body image, or it can be a number like no one shoe fits everything. But if you're portraying or constantly portraying something you're not, you'll actually find you're attracting the wrong people. If you suddenly go through a hard time, are those people going to be there for you? If you show your imperfections from the start, if you take that makeup off and go out with somebody, if somebody's suddenly going to go, oh, where's your makeup? Or like, oh, you're really dressing like that. Do you really need that in your life? That's not to say there's anything wrong with that person. They're on a different part of their journey, so just wish them well. But for me, I'd rather have people that I knew had my back when I was at my lowest, rather than coming along because I'm so and so or I've done anything. Like when you spoke before the show and you was like, I'm so honoured, like Glenn, you're doing this, you're doing that. I'm like, I'm Glenn. I'm Glenn. That's it. No title. I'm Glenn. And that's why I call myself the world's best imperfectly perfect coach. And I coach some of the most prolific names when it comes to the back end of some of these celebrities that now have been on the campaign. I'll coach them because I'm like, I'm going to take you back to basics. Like, you may be up here in a career, but in here, you're down here because you don't know how to unravel it. Once you work out here, your business will go up here. Yes, I can get someone from A to B to C to Z with a business through strategy and implementation, everything through marketing, publicity. But what's in my heart, if I can impart on that and you, so that we work on you from here to here, not only will your business go successful, but you're going to be successful in yourself.
Wow. This hit different and you got me emotional again, which is amazing, Glenn. This is so powerful and this is so unbelievably true that many of the things that you are saying, we kind of know them, we are aware of them, we keep them in our logical minds, but we don't get to have them in here, to have this transfer, to have the transformation to the heart. I love this. Thank you so much for mentioning the masks. Oh my goodness.
Because you need to get out of the logical head. That's the missing link that a lot of people need. So when I'm coaching or like I'm talking here, it's I'm picking things up on you, which I'll talk to you after. But the thing is, if you're leading by your logical head, you're not having time to be that child and thinking about what you actually love in life and what made you tick. Like, where did you lose that along the way? What happened? And it's uncovering that to find out, like, we can do all these coaching courses, we can do NLP, we can do everything. But if people are truly honest with themselves, they still compare, they still compete, they still judge, unless they release it all. And it's a hard process. I always say the hardest thing or the hardest journey you are ever going to work on is yourself. Like, business is nothing. External stuff means nothing. And I'll tell everybody, if they go on my Instagram as Glenn Marsden, I share my struggles along the way of building an international organization. Because there's been times when my pockets have been empty. There's been times when it's come between me and my wife because she's like, how long can you keep on doing this? Because you're helping everybody else, but there's nothing coming in. And I actually flipped that after a while because luckily I've got a strong support network. And they was like, Glenn, do you see what's happening along your journey? You're actually being shown what it's like for these people who actually have nothing. So you can resonate, you can help them. And then on the flip side, people see, on again, the external, they see Wim Hof, Dr. Joe Dispenza, Les Brown, Hollywood people on my podcast, they see all this. So then on the flip side of that, I have to deal with people looking through me, looking over me, looking around me. Glenn, can you connect me with? Glenn, can you... so nobody wants to know Glenn. So can you imagine how that made me feel? I was battling, like, not only that, I'd gone through that, and then I was going through another lesson. And then again, the same support network, which is why I'm saying values, principles mean more to me than if someone's got money or anything, because those people pulled me to the side and they was like, can you not see what's happening now? I was like, what? And they said, well, all the people that you're getting on your campaign, they're very prolific names. They don't know who's real around them, because can you imagine? They get all these people all the time wanting to do something and take from them and go to an event from them and they do this. And I was like, oh my God. I was like, so I've been shown that for a reason. I've been shown that for a reason. If you can flip the switch and you can look and you can kind of tap in higher, and that is why I'm saying you've got to come out of your logical. Because when we're in a logical thought process, we start going into analytical process, we start thinking, we start trying to control everything, and you really have to surrender and just go, I have got no idea. I'm just going to let it go.
Wow, this is relieving to know that you can let it go. And let's be honest, do we need anyone's approval or permission to let things go? Definitely not. We don't need to prove
People still
anything.
fall into that, don't they? That
Yeah.
is the sad thing that I do want to reiterate to people. It's the fact that there are so many people out there, and I always say, because I don't make judgment, it's not for me to judge anybody. Like I'm someone who claps the loudest for people, but it's not a judgment. It's a way that you revert and you ask people to change the narrative. Because I'm going, okay, so if you're leading and you're a coach or you're in a certain position and you're calling yourself an expert or this, that, and the other, however, your narrative very much is talking about all the stuff that internally you're battling with. Why not share that? Where's this thing come going, oh, so I'm an expert, so I need to have it all together? Because I'll tell you something, my clients that come to me love the aspect that I share my journey along the way, so they know I've gone through it. I don't talk the talk, I walk the walk. And there's this whole process, and I think it's come from society again, where I've worked with psychologists before in the campaign. One came from the old school under a board of directors who couldn't really say if they'd ever struggled. However, the other one was a younger lady, and she shared her crying on her social media. She shared the trials and tribulations she went through. She's doing well for herself, but this one is flying around the world and dealing with a lot of kids because the kids are resonating with her, and there's a connection. So it just depends. Like, if you're not being true to yourself, it doesn't mean to say that you can't do things, but I just think, I hate the word authentic, but there's a lot of people that throw the word authentic, but their actions do not mean what it means. And to me, it's like, step into your truth, learn to surrender, and those people, once you surrender and speak your truth, they will be brought to you, or you will find them.
This is so powerful, and I have to say that you have just helped me conquer a limiting belief of my own, thinking that, again, logically, I would think that yes, sharing your story, sharing your struggle is awesome. People need to know you. No one has gotten to have such a beautiful experience in this lifetime with only happy times, obviously. I used to think very deep down that if you share your ugly side, you're going to be looking as a weak person. People will think that, poor guy, I pity her, or I pity him. But it's the opposite thing,
So look
actually.
what's happened in society. Look what's happened. It's kept people quiet, and we continuously lose people because of that notion. It's being brought forward, and it's the same as businesses. Like, I speak out loud and I shout the loudest, and I'm like, don't just say that you're talking about mental health on one day or a month within your company to tick a blue check. Like, are you actively following up 3 months later to see how everyone is? And are you doing an open door policy? Like, I'm just like, I've been there, I've had friends there, and you know what? On the podcast, you've got one of Hollywood's biggest names. Say you've got Dr. Joe Dispenza. So you're trying to tell me, as a company owner, that you still may or may not judge somebody or have it on an application form. Have you, or do you suffer with mental health? Because I'll tell you something, if I can show some of the world's most successful people that have been to their rock bottom with mental health, and they are the world's most successful people, and yet you as a CEO might turn up to watch Les Brown talk, or you might turn up to watch Dr. Joe Dispenza, and you're clapping for them, then what are you doing when you go back to running your company? You're making judgment on somebody who's been through that, but yet Dr. Joe's been through the same thing. And you're turning up to his event, clapping the loudest for him. How does that work?
Wow. There are many things that are distorted just so that we can get ourselves to look good. Okay, I know that we all want to be loved, to be a part of a community, to be needed and appreciated. But let's build a community with people that can truly appreciate our non-makeup face, as you say, people that enjoy our clothing that may not be the most fashion thing ever. It got me thinking now, as you mentioned, your friends not being honest with you in terms of what they put in their bodies to be looking very bulky. I had some awful postpartum struggles myself 2 years ago, and I still have. I still am processing all sorts of ideas and family opinions on how to raise a baby. And all of my friends that I have been talking to said, my child is amazing. I'm having the most easiest journey with postpartum ever. And I was a complete mess, Glenn, for 8 months. I had no idea which was my name. Can you imagine? All of the changes and the sleepless nights, and it got me to have this awful postpartum depression that I felt, okay, I'm broken. No one can understand me. I mean, look at my friend. She looks amazing wearing makeup on social media. She looks perfect. She says she's having an easy journey. But I kind of doubt that. I think that people only want to look good and they forget to be human. We lose this human, heartfelt connection that can save someone's life, because I got to read about postpartum depression and it's awfully sad that many moms,
they do it and they don't talk about it. And this is
yeah,
the thing. And I'll say to you there that I'll pick up when you said about your friend or whoever this lady was that your initial gut reaction that she wasn't sharing the truth?
yeah, yeah.
Okay, so then you suddenly went into your analytical or your logical brain. And then you was like, oh, but she looks amazing on social media. Trust your gut feeling, because he's never wrong.
You're so right.
Women, especially with women.
We tend to forget this.
When it comes to your gut feeling, like feeling it, my mum used to say, you can feel it in your waters. But yeah,
I love it. Yeah, the gut
like
feeling.
my wife, she didn't go through the postpartum, but when we moved in an area, when we had our first child, she went to a mother's group. And she sat there and she came home and she was like, I am never going there again. I was like, why? What was it? She was like, well, they were all saying my child was perfect, my child was this, like, oh, I'm doing this. And she was like, why do I feel like I'm not getting no sleep? I'm knackered, I can't do this. I'm like, and she never went back. But if you're around the right people, they're going to share that. And after this, I'm going to share, I'm going to connect you with a good friend of mine that was in the fitness industry for a long time. And she went through postpartum. And she went through a lot of body issues because she was used to having a toned, flat stomach. And hers, like, I think her abdominal muscles, it messed them up as well. And she went through a really, really hard time. But she's actually turned that into her adversity into she now shares her journey and she writes. And she's now just getting a big following. And she writes articles because she was just like, I can't let this define me.
Wow. Oh my God, I love this. I used to have these perfectly shaped abs. I was into fitness and sports, and it does take a lot of energy and resources now to get back in that shape. I would love to know more of her story. This is wonderful. And I love it when people are so transparent with what's really going on. You don't get to see this. And I can understand why. And I'm sometimes falling in that awful trap as well. This was an amazing reminder, Glenn, to just be me. I don't need to prove anything. We don't need to prove anything. We're just right exactly the way that we are. And Glenn,
there's so many journeys. It can be compare, compete, and judge, whether it's looks, whether it's work, whether it's thinking someone's got a better life, and then the entrepreneurial. So what else I wanted to do with the IPC as part of my vision. So I always say it was placed on my heart. Like, doors have just continually opened for me, which I'm grateful for. But behind the scenes, there's been a lot of lessons that I've had to learn to go deep within myself to be able to talk the way I do and the lessons that I've learned. But I'll tell you something, when it comes to, if this is going out on LinkedIn, like, I know you're very prolific on LinkedIn, I know a lot of people, but I found a disconnection on LinkedIn at the time because I went on thinking that it was predominantly a business platform. However, what was disconnecting me was that I thought Instagram was the moment it stopped when people were like, I've got 50,000 contacts, I've got this, that, and the other. And for me, I was like, but out of all those people, how many do you actually know? How many is taking the opportunity to get to know you for you?
Wow.
Like, I see some people who have got this huge reach and these engagements. And then me, when I've got time, like, there's a couple, and they preach really loud. They get no judgment, but they're like, oh, when I go on people's platforms and when I've got this, the engagement's high. So all I do is I look at their engagement and then I look at the last 3 posts and I'll see it's the exact same people. And I'll say, that's great that you've got a community of people who follow it, but how well do you know them? Are they paying clients? So is your business going anywhere for how long you're spending on that platform? Or are they just playing the game of, if I comment on yours, you'll comment on mine, and both our reach will go up, which is fair, which is fine. But how much of that time is taken away from you spending it with your loved ones? How much of that time is taking you building your business? Because it's this game of this. And when you start realizing why I don't compare, compete, or judge, is because my journey went from personal development, the most spiritual people were brought to me, and then I just realized there was something bigger out there. So now I just say, a lot of people say universe, I just say God. I was never brought up around religion or spirituality. This campaign brought it to me. It was like, okay. But when you start realizing with spirituality and all this, it's one of the hardest journeys, but it also teaches you what was made for you is for you. What was made for me is for me. So you can't take what is meant for me away from me, and I can't take what is meant for you for you. We're all on our own paths. We come in this world on our own. We go out on this world, and we've got a journey. And people come along to teach us lessons, reasons, seasons, lifetime, like everybody always says. But it's true. If you think about that person that really pissed you off, why did they piss you off? Because it brought something out in you that you didn't like about yourself. Or if that person kept doing it, it was because you was allowing it. If we look at it, so I kept at the time, like I said, I was getting people coming to me, even who I thought were friends, going, Glenn, can you connect me with this person, this person, this person, this person, this person? And because like you, at first, I was kind of a people pleaser, and I was like, oh, well, if I don't, then they'll be like pissed off at me or say something about me. And then it got to the point where I was like, this is a pattern. This is a common theme. If I don't break it, I'm actually attracting it because I'm letting them do it to me. So as soon as I stopped it, as soon as I learned to step into my no, and then I bring people along my journey on my team. And then there were some people that were attracted to the prestige and the names and everything. And at the beginning, I was like helping people get on podcasts and all this because I was very grateful. But then I was learning, it was a case of, okay, Glenn's still doing all the work, whereas people are taking. And I'll never put judgment on them because it was a lesson I had to learn to step into my authority and go, you know what? This is about helping people. This is not about taking advantage of me. So if you want to be on my team, you need to align with my visions, my missions, my passion. I'll give you everything. I'll get you on this, this, and this, and this. Because I want to show in this world, if you come together and work together, you truly can share the wealth, whether that's happiness, joy, opportunity. Me and my team now, I had 2 days off because I was feeling sick the other day, and the old me would have gone into control mode, going, no, I need to do this, I need to do this. Kazia, who's absolutely amazing, she's a partner in IPC, she shares the same vision. She knows everything about it. She was like, take it off because you deserve it. And I think a lot of times, if you're an empath or compassionate and you're always helping people, you put yourself last. And especially as a mother, you probably put yourself last as well. But you always have to think of yourself. And this entrepreneurial journey, I used to put free events on. I used to do this, that, and that. And I'd empty my bucket so much, whereas it was empty. And it wasn't until I met the right people that said, Glenn, you're emptying your bucket. You're giving, but you're not taking yourself. So we created the IPC community platform where people can come on. And this is about unraveling all that, where they get to do programs with some of these celebrities and corporate leaders that I've built relationships with. And we're bringing this book out called the IPC Notes to My Younger Self, whereby we're giving people the opportunity to share their story to the world within a collaborative setting. We've already had 3 volumes with over 55 co-authors.
Wow.
They're international business people. And the thing is, what I wanted to show with that is that there will be people along the way that tell you, I can get you publicity, you need to pay me 10,000. I can teach you this, but you need to pay me X amount. Don't get me wrong, there's a fee involved in becoming a co-author because it's a published book. I'm not taking the charge on when it comes to paying the publisher to do all the work. But in saying that, it's an opportunity for people to collaborate with people who clap for each other, to share their story, to empower and inspire people around the world, and at the same time, get the publicity on mainstream media, get it attached to some of these networks that I have actually opened up to. Because I'm like, I will share it all with you, but you've got to pay it forward. Do you know what I mean? Like, if I see someone's got a good heart and they're helping other people, and it's not just me, like, you can tap into over 55 other people who have got businesses all around the world. You get to empower people. You actually get mainstream media because of the IPC. You get a reach of over 7 million people. Sounds like I'm doing a pitch here. I'm not. It's just about the entrepreneurial thing. That if you come together collectively and you clap the loudest, there's no point in you, I'm going to try and get that client over that person or that. I only take on 1 client a month, as in my coaching, because I don't need no more. Like, they pay that because they know what they're getting with me. And then the rest I obviously do with my organisation. But I'll take 1 person that I can spend that time and I can really pour into them and help them move forward, and then open those doors, open the networks. But they have to sign a contract that basically said they have to sort this out first.
I love this. I love this. This is a heartfelt pitch. This is not business. This is business done with heart. And I love it that you said this, because in a few minutes when we wrap it up, I really want you to be very specific as to where can people find you and get in touch with you, because this is the main purpose that we are having this wonderful talk, so that people can see your amazing heart, which I already knew you have before talking to you, since I feel so much emotion in all your work. This is just outstanding. And I love it that you reminded people to put themselves first. It's not selfish at all. I know that many people around me are looking very funny at me, since after 8 months, I got my business back on track. And I felt like, oh my goodness, I'm betraying my daughter. What am I doing here? I should be there cooking. I should be there cleaning. Let me tell you, my family wasn't the most compassionate family ever. So I kind of felt this pressure to be, hey, let go of business and money and just focus on your daughter. But then I felt it's not me. And at one point I made this decision. Okay, what am I going to teach her? And I want people to know this, that even if you have the wildest dreams and desires, if you're not true to yourself, you're fake. What are your close people going to learn from you? What's your legacy going to be like? Am I going to teach my daughter to just follow other people's advice? I may not be the best cook. I may not be the best cleaning person ever, but I really am building this life that I enjoy. And we forget to enjoy life, Glenn. I think it was until 26 when I got this heart disease. Can you imagine? Heart disease because of so much frustration, not being able to express myself. I also had thyroid issues with my throat, just not being able to vociferate who I was. It was just such a wake-up call, and I'm happy I had that issue. And I want to ask you, Glenn, for someone that is younger, watching us, knowing that you have such great support with using imperfections as our best allies, what would you say the first step for them would be to have a happy, fulfilled life? Someone that's young.
Yeah. Firstly, I just want to touch base. Something came to me, and it's weird how this happened. But so I pick up off stuff off people, and I pick up off emotions. That time when you was going through that comes to my head straight away. You felt like you were drowning. You were suffocating.
Yeah.
Because your voice was, yeah, okay. I'll talk to you afterwards about it. It's my little special gift now that comes through all the time. But yeah, no, I picked that up quite a lot off you. But yeah, for anybody out there that's young, it's, you know what, like I've got young kids, you've got a young child. Really go out into the world and be yourself. Like what we are seeing in the world at the moment, it's like the world is getting turned upside down, but a lot of things are becoming exposed as well. So what we're going to see is a lot more fear. We saw it through the mandates, we saw it through the vaccines. Now there's something else that they're trying to push through. Like, just rise above it. Like, and that's hard to do. So I'm not here to try and claim that I'm preaching or I'm bloody an expert or anything like that. I'm glad. But if you hold yourself in that place of fear, you're going to attract it. So try and raise about, enjoy your life and be who you are. If you want to wear a dress, bloody wear a dress. If you don't want to wear makeup, don't wear a makeup. Like, don't stop dreaming. One of the commonalities that I'll say to you, and I've started tapping into it, is through Dr. Jodie Spencer, through Les Brown, and I keep mentioning these three names because they're people that inspired me. I start picking up on things. So when you're interviewing people or anybody listening to this, listen to people. Like, there's three types of listeners: those who don't listen, those who try to listen, but they're too in the head thinking of the next question. And there's the third, and I can tell you're the third. You intently listen because the emotion that you're picking up, I can see, and so you're listening to every single word that I'm saying, which is the best type of interviewer or anybody going through that. If you listen to those podcasts of mine with those, you will hear three things that all of them say, and it's tapping into themselves by finding that child. And I questioned Dr. Joe on there, and at first I was like, should I say this? This came to my head, and I said, can I just say something to you? It's like, yeah, sure. And I was like, don't get this the wrong way, but the way you talk like a child. And I said, not in the way your demeanor is. I was like, you're so passionate and expressionate about what you do. And he turned around to me and he said, Glenn, once you see what I've seen and you know, there's no going back.
Wow.
Then Wim Hof came on and it was like expressionate and it was all this and he was talking. And I was like, wow, you've not lost your child nature, have you? And he said, there was a time I did. He lost his wife to suicide.
Wow.
And the same with Les Brown is,
Wow.
it's there's something more than us that we need to learn, but we need to tap into that golden Buddha and we need to remove all the shit. So for any youngsters out there, try not to get distracted by all this shit that's trying to come onto you. Just find your people. Because if you're going through a hard time, if you're in entrepreneurship, if you're in school, teenage years, be yourself. You're going to attract your people. And when you're going through that hard time, you're going to have those people through you with thick or thin. They're the ones you want. You don't want to try and portray something you're not or wear a mask, because the only thing you're going to do is attract the wrong type. I've been in front of some of the most successful people with fame, with money. And Josh Broom, who I met, he said it best. It was like, I've had fame. I've had money. I was suicidal. Didn't make me happy. So that's what I would say. Be yourself. Be your imperfectly perfect self.
Wow. I love this. As simple as it sounds, it's the most perfectly. These two words, be yourself, I think are the most powerful words that we can use in this
But
world.
you keep saying it. This is a thing. So I challenge you with this. It's you. So I listen even when people interview. you keep saying this, and I want to reiterate it for the audience, because you're saying it sounds so simple. It does, doesn't it? So why don't we do it? Where has it come from, or what are we telling if it sounds so simple, it's too good to be true?
This is a great limiting belief, Glenn. We think that we need to overcomplicate things because if it's this simple, it can't work. We need to make it complex. We need to make it very elaborate. But it's not like this. And I love the child approach. I think you are the first person in 4 years, I believe, that tells me, okay, it's okay to be a child. It's okay to just laugh it out or be really energetic. It's okay.
People are looking for that external thing. And I'll say to you or anybody, I'll be like, where do opportunities come from? People. So why are you looking at all the external things? Why aren't you building relationships with people? How do you build relationships with people? Be yourself. I did a podcast the other day in Canada, and I posted the thing today on my socials because it was the fact of people like, so you've got over 450 influential public figures on. How much did you pay them all? Because some of these people cost a lot of money. You've got all this mainstream media. How much did it cost you? $0. And people are like, how did you, like, I've been interviewed by some corporate leaders and they spend hundreds of thousands on marketing and they haven't achieved half of what I've done within the time on $0.
Glenn, did you put your heart to work? Did you put your heart to work for you? You need to tell us.
Put your heart to it. No, I think it was just a point of, I look back at it now and it's been part of my journey. Like, no airs and graces. I've been myself the whole way through. The person I resonate with is Gary Vee. If he's one of those speaker guys, because yes, he swears, he's got profanities, but he speaks his truth. I see too many people leading, and again, no judgment. I see them leading by this grandeur and this money and this fame. And I think for me, as I talk on a spiritual journey, I'm like, I've been put in front of these people for a reason, to show me it's not all cracked up like it's meant to be. People look at Hollywood people, and I've got to know some very well. They're like great friends of mine now. And they was like, what people don't realize is they'll see me on a show, but when that show's over, there's no money coming in. And if you haven't got no money, you can't pay an agent. So no one's looking for work for you. And then if you're not paying an agent or a manager or a publicist, you're not getting into an event, so you're not being seen. And then the next minute, if you're not getting jobs, you're not being seen, what happens? Normally, if you were on a show and you're kind of famous, you go straight into a newspaper article going, oh, look where they are now. And then heaven forbid that they work in a shop because they need to pay the rent. They get put in the press on a feature. Oh, so-and-so is like at the bottom now. They're working in a shop. A famous actress the other day was photographed. She was waitressing at maybe a friend's cafe or something like that. And it made headlines in the social papers. And luckily, a lot of people in the comments was like, good on her. Like, COVID's happened. The Australian government did do nothing for the people in the arts sector. Literally nothing. And she was working in a cafe because the movies and the films have been shut down over COVID. And yet I don't know what their intended purpose were, like to bring someone down when they might have feel down as it is. It's like, this world's upside down, and I think it takes the people to come together.
It is, Glenn. I love it that you said this. And work of any kind is very honorable. It's something that we should take an example from. Wow, this woman, this lady actor, I'm a fan without knowing who she is, because just having this vulnerability to be living your life, you don't owe anything to anyone. You know, I sometimes say question your thoughts, especially your own thoughts. Obviously, they don't define you. You don't need to explain yourself to anyone, not even to yourself. Just do things that make you happy. And yeah.
It's the woman, like, I take my hat off to everyone. And I used to say to a couple of the actors here in Australia, So what people don't realize, for 2 years behind the scenes, I jumped in construction. So I was doing 12-hour days, 6 days a week. And I was also building this campaign. So a full day of that, getting home, got family, then learning how to do publicity, do networking, do systems, strategy. And that's what I mean. When I coach people, it's not just here. I know integration, I know systems, I know how to do funnels, I know, but that stuff doesn't matter. You need to sort here first. But that was my behind the scenes. And I used to say to a lot of people in the entertainment, I'm like, do you realize how much money in Australia construction are earning? And in Australia, you've got some of these, they call them lollipop girls. Basically, they're traffic controllers, but that's like a term that people use for them. And they stand there, they can be men or women, and they just stood there for like 12 hours. And they're pulling in a lot of money. Like, they're not silly. They're pulling in a lot of money. But I remember saying it to a couple of people in entertainment, and there was one girl who was a good friend of mine, and she's a model. She's an Australian model. And I said, go get your white card. I said, when you've not got any jobs on, jump on a night shift, and you'll be pulling like $3,000 in a week. And she was like, how much? And I was like, so she did it. A couple others was like, no, because if I get photographed, I'm in the paper. I was like, but these people aren't paying your bills. So it's...
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's still this judge. Like, people can talk about it, but unless you step into your truth, like, people can say anything, but when they see how big the IPC keeps on getting and growing, and it might be basic, that sounds wrong, not be basic, but building relationships and just taking it back to basics.
Love this. This is a great advice that I'm going to practice on as well. Wow. Glenn, this has been a transformative talk. I've gotten emotional in many ways, and I need to thank you from the bottom of my heart for this wonderful time, for your knowledge, for your wisdom, for your energy, and for really crushing many myths, crushing many limiting beliefs today. And I look forward to seeing the Imperfectly Perfect campaign grow so much that we have it here in Romania on every sidewalk, just reminding ourselves to be ourselves. Thank you for this wonderful honor today.
Thank you as well. Yeah, you the work that you do, and I just want to share because I think it's important, is what brought us together was Rob Mack, who's a very good friend of mine. And sharing these stories, I want you to know how powerful you are in sharing this story and other people's story, because Rob Mack was somebody, when I went to America, he invited me onto his show. I've not met him, but he invited me. And the day I was there, in walked this guy. You've seen Rob Mack. He's a beautiful guy. He's a beautiful guy. I don't find in my sexuality, but he's a beautiful guy. And he walked in and I was like, big guy, pearly white teeth, looked amazing, sounded amazing. And afterwards, he came up to me, gave me the biggest hug. And he was like, everything I do on TV is additional. He said, what you do means more to me. And I said, why? And he said, for 17 years of my life, I hated myself. I hated the way I looked. And I took a knife and I took it to my arm. And he was going to take his life. But then the reason I'm telling you is because this is how powerful you are telling people and sharing people's stories that I want people to take away from, that it can change someone's life. He was walking for an event one evening in Beverly Hills, dressed up, and there was a man who stood at the traffic light at the side of it. Now, as a reminder, Rob always wears this little bracelet around where he dug the knife into himself. And he actually said, this man stood there and he was like, where are you going? You look very nice, like very smart. He was like, oh, I'm going to an event. He was like, yeah, you look really dressed up. And then this kid appeared from behind the dad, must have been his dad, and said to him, what's that? And he was pointing at his bracelet. And he was like, well, for 17 years of my life, I hated myself and I took a knife and I was going to take my own life. And he said, just at that point, this might get me going again because it always does. He said, that kid just burst into tears. And his dad was like, "What's up?" And he said, "This was my final walk, and I was going to go home."
Wow.
And I was going to, yeah.
Wow. Wow.
That gives me every single time. I tell Rob and I tell it on a podcast, and it was just like he was going to go home and take his life, and that was his last walk with his dad. And if it wasn't for Rob being placed there, he just saved that kid's life. So that's how powerful you are telling people's stories, and I want you to know that. So don't stop.
Wow. Thank you for sharing this amazing story. My God. This has been amazing.
It's powerful. It really is powerful. Storytelling.
Surreal what storytelling can do. And I love it that you use storytelling as your best, most amazing process with the Imperfectly Perfect campaign. Thank you for all that you do, Glenn. And before we leave today, can you please tell our audience where can they get in touch with you? Because I know everyone watching us and listening to us wants to get in touch with you ASAP.
Yeah, sure. Well, thank you. So anything to do with the organisation, you can go to imperfectlyperfectcampaign.org, where you'll find everything about. We've got an upcoming summit, which is free for people to attend. We've got incredible speakers sharing their stories, so you'll see how impactful it is. If people want to get in touch with me, you can go to glennmarsden.com. You can find me across all social media. As I said, if people are interested in learning more about coaching or anything, I only take on one client a month because of my organisation. But hopefully you took a lot from this and you can see what I do to people to get the best out of them. So.
Wow. We just had a friendly talk and you got me emotional, I think, 4 times. Thank you for this amazing time, Glenn. I could not think of having a more insightful talk. And I mean, I have high expectations. This has beyond exceeded my wildest expectations into educating and crushing limiting beliefs. Once again, you have helped me tremendously just with this amazing friendly talk. Thank you once again. And I look forward to seeing this amazing movement grow bigger and bigger. And I know you're going to impact at least 8 billion people, not just 1 billion. I know this.
Oh, wow. You're touching as well.
Definitely. Thank you. What an honor, Glenn.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Very much.
And saying goodbye to our YouTube friends. Thank you for watching us. If you're watching this as a rerun, make sure you get a pen and a piece of paper. My God, I'm glad I had mine here. Goodbye, everyone. And you'll find Glenn's links in the description below. And closing. YouTube.